All right. Hello, hello, hello to all our friends out there in YouTube land and vidcast land and pod land and however you want to call it, land of the free, home of the brave. We trust and pray. Uh, all right. So it's just good to have you with us today. This is our first show of the year. Again, welcome to Momentum, a stewardship idea. And just always a privilege for me to be here with you all today. And as always, salt and pepper. I am salt, I got pepper. It's good to have my brother, Elder Jeffrey Healy from the Westminster Presbyterian Church in Tiburon, California. Brother Healy, how are you today?
You know, thanks for asking, Curtis. I feel like I've been living in Never Land this last week. It's been surreal. Just surreal.
Good. I'm trying to get rid of this echo.
Well, you get rid of that echo, we'll get rid of something else that's causing all sorts of problems in this country in about 12 days, I think.
That is perfect. That is perfect. So let's go ahead and set this up. Man, okay, so I gotta figure out what I'm doing here. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good, as long as you can hear me. Let's go ahead and set this up. Today, I have something that I want to show before we get into our discussion. This has been a week of all weeks. It has been something that we haven't seen in over 200 years. And so let's see if I could just show a little bit of this right now. I'm going to get my screen. I'm going to share it because I've been wanting to know who this lady is. And now we're going to get a chance to see who this young lady is that lost her life this week while she was at the Capitol protesting. Again, it's a very, very sad conclusion that we have brought ourselves to. And I tell you, it's just not the way to get things done. We want to set the tone a little bit with this, but then we'll get into our discussion. All right, enough of that. So Brother Healy, what are your reflections on this past week?
It's been a week that I've never imagined as an American I would experience. It's it's a show that I watched, the type of show that I watched when I was over in the Philippines, serving in the Navy. It was such a blatant disregard for the rule of law, for the value of the human spirit, the value of the human body. I remember one time Curtis walking through Olongapo City in Subic Bay, And it was really just a wild, wild west town. I saw some young Filipino boy running out of a bar with a wallet in his hand that he had just stolen from one of the attendees at the bar. It was probably a U.S. sailor, since that seemed to be the bulk of the people that attended those bars. The guard at the front just pulled out a shotgun and killed the kid right on the spot. Went over, grabbed the wallet, walked it back inside to give it to the patron. There was such a disregard for life, such a disregard for the rule of law. I told myself, man, am I glad I don't live here. We were over there helping to protect it, and we were using their base as a method to help protect all the lines of communication, the sea lanes that allowed for commerce to flow, and just thought, wow, we are really the world's policemen. This week it was like this is Subic Bay, the Philippines, in Washington D.C. today. It was very scary. It was frightening. It was it hit me really hard. How about you?
Yeah, it hit me very, very hard. It hurt my spiritual demeanor, mostly because I can, as a person, I can physically, I can survive some stuff, right? I can survive pushback, right? And even mentally, but to see this country fall off the ledge spiritually, it caused me, I think, a mild form of depression, because it was so out of order and it was so un-American, dressed in an American flag, almost like a Trojan horse, where you put the flag around a barrier, you roll it in, you think it's peaceful, it gets close enough, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. To see this country, at this particular point, and honestly, we talked about this once before, and we got to get our Professor Cornell West on this show right here real soon, because I remember last year when we had him on the other Sunday night broadcast, and he talked about we will see the neo-fascist backlash. We haven't seen it yet, but it's something that we will see, and it's race related. It's related to economics. It's socially related. It's, we saw a whole bunch of things balled up into one yarn. So it's clear that there's not a lot of tolerance, in America, but this is one thing that's also clear. And this is what we need to understand. There are 330 million people in America. From what I understand, 74 million people voted for Donald Trump, right? Another 78 million, I think, voted for Joe Biden, which still left another 120 million votes, 150 million votes out there. The fact that they're trying to call this, this is what the other half of America thinks, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. I mean, it's not even 1/3 of this population, right? So we need to be really, really clear that everybody doesn't think like this. And we also need to understand why people do think like this. I was disappointed. I have not heard any white evangelical pastors speak out at all. Jim Jeffers down in Jeffries in First Baptist Dallas, a couple of months ago, said that Donald Trump will probably go down as one of the best presidents in American history. Now, this is a pastor of a very influential church in this country who is a Trump backer. And all these guys are now, they're silent. They're gone away. They're silent. They have nothing to say. So, what wrecks me more is, what the churches ideology is on some of this. And, you know, right now, I mean, you were a pretty high-ranking Navy official, right? You know, I mean, I wouldn't call you a grunt or anything like that. I mean, you went to the Naval Academy, you know, so I mean, you must be feeling some kind of way, man. And I'm telling you, I'm asking you as a civilian, you know, we got 12 days to go, but are we safe?
Um, you know, without any doubt, until this past Tuesday, I would have said there's no fear whatsoever. I've never imagined what could have happened today, or what could have happened this week. We talked about this before, Curtis, and one of the things that that is different from the. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One is the oath of office that officers take in the military. And I want to talk about the difference real quickly between the Western ethos, that, you know, the Judeo-Christian Muslim ethos that really pervades throughout this part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I want to temper the whole thing by reminding us all that we as members of our tribe, be it progressive political, be it Christian, be it whatever it is, we all have a tendency to celebrate the diversity within our tribe, yet we ascribe closed-mindedness to everyone in the other tribe. They're doing the same thing. You know, they're saying, well, all those blank are like this. And it's hard, I think it's inappropriate for us to make the same damnation of another tribe without realizing there's a lot of people there that that did not agree with it. It's evil what was done. And there were the people that did that, the people that instigated that are just as responsible as the people that did it. They knew when they made the speeches they made what the impact was likely to be. They can't hide behind, well, I didn't know what they're going to do. You told them to go down the street and attack. So back to the oath of office. The oath of office of an officer in the United States military is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And goes on a little bit beyond that. In the enlisted oath, it's the same as the officer oath, but it has included in that, and I will obey the orders of the president and the officers appointed over me. That caveat is not in the officer oath. It is inculcated in military officers that your number one loyalty in taking this oath, and the oath is not for your time that you're serving, it's for life, that your oath is to support and defend the Constitution. If you receive an illegal order, you are morally obligated to disobey that order, which gives me great comfort to know that if the commander-in-chief gives an order that we all know to be wrong and illegal, we will not obey that order. So that gives me comfort. Now, when you look at the difference between that ethos of the U.S. military, and it's very similar to the British and the French militaries, their oaths as well. You compare that with the Bushido Code of Japan and the Prussian Code of Germany, talking about three entities who are pretty large military powers in the previous century. The Bushido Code basically followed the Samurai Code, which mainly was the emperor is God. He's God's appointed. Actually, he is God, not he's God's appointed. He is God. So whatever the emperor orders is God. So I have to obey him. The Prussian was, we are subordinated to all those above us. And as I talked about that little caveat, and obey the orders of the president and the officers appointed over me, that was in the officer code there as well. Not the exact words, but that feeling. So when you read the transcripts of the post World War II trials, both in Japan and in Nuremberg, the Japanese defense is God was telling me to do it. the Nuremberg was, I didn't agree with the order, but gosh darn it, it came from somebody senior to me, so I had to obey it. I couldn't not obey it. Now, we don't really hear much about the trials over in Japan because the world had been through a really, a terrible, terrible war. 70 million or so people killed, mainly civilians, a number of military as well, and we were just ready to be done with it. But I think if you look at those differences, it gives me comfort to know that the officer corps will not participate in a coup. Long answer to a pretty tough
No,
one.
let's keep going because you actually see that as a coup?
I said, do I see what was
What happened this week? Do you see that as a coup?
I see it as an attempted coup.
All right, so it failed, but
yeah.
And so I want to read something to you. And I knew this. I don't know. I get conflicted sometimes because I want to really be a peacemaker. I really want to be a peacemaker. I think that people talk about me and how I am and what have you, but I think that one of the results in some of the grace that God has on my life is how I feel about other people, right? And I really am a person who seeks peace, as opposed to confrontation. But I want to share something what James Baldwin said, and it came out so quickly, and it made me feel a bit ambivalent, but it's very, very true. And it talked about the difference of what would have happened between, that and Black Lives Matters. And someone talked about Louis Farrakhan going to the White House, had 4 guys with him, and the FBI was there, the National Guard was there. There's just one black guy with 4 other black guys, and they were just like, having a fit, man. But this, I want to say, Baldwin in his essay that's entitled "A Talk to Teachers," he says this. He says, "It is not really a Negro revolution that is upsetting this country. What is upsetting the country is a sense of its own identity. If, for example, one managed to change the curriculum in all the schools so that Negroes learn more about themselves and their real contributions to this culture, you would be liberating not only Negroes, you'd be liberating white people who know nothing about their own history." And I'm hoping that that this statement from Baldwin will help move us forward. Because if it's really an American dilemma, honestly, if it's an American dilemma, it's more than a Black Lives Matter dilemma. It's more than Antifa, and whoever, and Proud Boy dilemma. It's a truth dilemma. It's a human dilemma. And as soon as we get to a point where we can try to live with one another, then obviously, we'll have less of these type of infractions, that move forward. So I know there's we talked about something earlier, right? I kind of want to do a brain twister today, right? Because I said to Jeff, I said, what if I looked at this situation through the lenses of a white guy, and Jeff, what if you looked at this situation through the lenses of a black guy? And then I started talking about reconciliation. I started, talking about identification. I started talking about, acceptance, those things, right? I mean, as you say, when it comes to tribalism, right? We all have our spots, within that realm. However, when you're a tribe and you're in the middle of a lot of other tribes, right? In order to get along, you have to see through the eyes of your other neighbor. What do you think about that?
I'm left-handed.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are.
And this means This is
Sneaky left-handed, matter of fact.
well, it's sinistra, I think is the French word, sinister. When I grew up back in Belleville, Illinois, we had the little desks. You had the chair with the little thing underneath, and the desk you wrote on. Being a left-hander, I didn't get to rest my arm on the little shelf that was in front of the writing part of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Because the desk wasn't made for left-handers; it was made for right-handers. When we were taught how to write, we would hook when we were writing because we wanted to read what we wrote. Right-handers get to pull the pen across the table, across the sheet of paper, seeing what they've written. Their hands don't get smudged with ink. So I had to learn to write in a funky way. I didn't get to sit at a left-handed desk. And it's nothing, but that was my first real acknowledgement.
That's a lot, man. That's big.
Well, it's telling me I'm not my handedness isn't appreciated. In fact, society doesn't give a hoot about my handedness.
Great example. Great example. So we got to make adjustments, and we have to make them quick.
Yeah.
And we have to make them now. And I know that we have begun the impeachment proceedings, and I think it's just kind of like a matter of principle. You've traveled around the world more than I have, and so how do you think how important is it that the globe sees us, at this moment? Do you think that in the impeachment process is a matter of principle because it's clear the 25th, amendment process is not going to happen? But do you think that the impeachment process is just a matter of principle to say to our antagonists around the world, this is over, and don't have any thoughts about this?
I believe that the world is looking for us to go through the process, regardless if there's one day left in somebody's term or if it was the first day of his or her term. What I would like would be to invoke Section 4 of the 25th Amendment. I would also like, when we've seen the amount of money that has been raised for the next campaign, there's a number of corporate laws that were put into place recently that were vetoed and then were overridden congressionally. The defense budget and these acts, or some things in there that there's a secondary reason that Trump vetoed this bill. I would like, personally, if the money that has been raised under the guise of President Trump's reelection in 2024, that those funds be used to help repair the damage done by the protesters that he and Rudy Giuliani promoted to do the stuff that they did. I think this guy is most impacted by financial rather than just words. He wants to be the smartest guy in the room. I get that. He's got an ego very large. I get that. He's never had a board that really held him accountable. I get that. He's surrounded himself with sycophants. I get that. We got to hit him someplace that will really impact him. We were talking the other day about the West Point, when somebody breaks an honor violation there, if they're found innocent through a loop, if they're found innocent because they didn't do it, they're right back in the Corps of Cadets. And I was a midshipman, not a cadet. The Corps says, okay, you were tried, you were found innocent, that's fine. If, however, they're found innocent upon a technicality that everybody, themselves included, knows that they broke the spirit of the rule, there's a punishment that used to be inflicted. It was outlawed at West Point in 1970. 73, 75, called silencing.
Mhm.
In which case, if that cadet walked by, people turn their backs. They disacknowledged that person. I think that's not a bad punishment here.
There's, if you want to snuff out a fire, just deny it of oxygen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'll go away. You don't even need water for that. But if you can find a way to deny it of oxygen, it will just go away.
Now, I'm not saying do anything physical to the man. I'm saying remove his bully pulpit oxygen. I think Facebook has done it. Twitter has done it.
Right.
Works for me.
Yeah. I tell people from time to time when I used to work for Gary Shimano there on 600 California Street, right? So, Gary, former Bear Stearns guy, and all of Ace Greenberg, Kissinger. He just knew all of the heavyweights. What's the guy, Schultz?
Yeah,
he knew him too. He had pictures on the wall of these guys, right?
George Schultz.
Joe Schultz, right? Exactly. Thank you. And so for a minute, for about 3 years, Trump was just unleashing these deals. Trump Towers, Trump Casino, Trump Towers 2,
Trump University,
Trump, Trump New Jersey, Atlantic Boardwalk, right? And after about 16 months, Gary Shimon, we had done about 3 or 4 Trump deals, right? And then after that, it's about 16 months, the entire boardroom was like, hey man, we can't do any more Trump deals. Number one, they're not making us any money. They're not making any money they made Gary money because he was collecting the fees, right, from us booking the deal, right? They were all secondaries. I think maybe one was an IPO, right? But at the end of the day, they all failed, all of them. Not one of those deals were attractive anymore. And so, it got to the point where Gary just got overwritten in the boardroom one day. And he was like, we got another Trump deal. And it was like simultaneously, the boardroom was like, no, we're not doing any more Trump deals, boss, if you want to call yourself the boss. But we were just tired. But that was an indication right there, of how the guy operated, right? And even with our friend Fisher, Jeffrey Fisher will talk about how he maneuvered and how he worked, behind the scenes. And, his intention was never really to pay off any debt, but it was to just continue to stack more debt, didn't care. And if you wanted to get back at him, he'd just say, sue me, right? And just lock it up in court for 5 years.
Yeah, to clarify, this is Fisher talking about Trump. This is not Jeff Fisher talking about Jeff Fisher.
No, this is Fisher talking about Trump.
Okay, good.
Not Jeff Fisher talking about Jeff Fisher.
Yeah.
Jeff, we're not talking about you. Good guy, right? Fisker's trading in the open market right now. Congratulations. So that was an indication, even on the business side, of how this guy was able to operate. But I would say this, man. I'll say this. The guy was kind of crafty, was kind of smart. He found a way to become the president of the United States, man. And I don't think we're the better for it. I think we're kind of the worst. You got that movie queued up?
Yeah, what I've got is just it's the name of the movie is White Man's Burden, and this is just the trailer on it. I'm going to do my best here. If you give me the screen, I don't know if I can do it. But I'm going to do the best I can.
Does it say, if you go to the bottom, do you have a share screen button?
It says, yeah, host disabled participant screen sharing.
One participant. Okay, here we go. I'll fix that with a click.
Okay, let's see. I think this is it. Tell me if it's working.
It's working.
Okay, so here we go. This is Harry Belafonte, who is the man in charge of this big company. This is supposed to be a flip of the roles where where he's in charge, and there's one of the guys that works for him is John Travolta, who is, this is supposed to be where the white men are, what it was at that point viewed as 1995 as the black man's role and the black man's and the white man's role. So I'm going to see if I can make this work. If not, sorry.
But in this world, the roles are reversed. White people are genetically inferior. I can't keep you on anymore. So when Lewis is unfairly fired from his job.
Well, tell him that I just lost my job at the factory and I need to talk to him. It's important.
How do I get involved in these matters? He decides to get even the only way he knows how. That's what this is about. This business will be out. Now you want to help. Get all down the world. HBO home video.
There we go.
Yep, let's talk about it.
So, yeah. The funniest thing to me about this movie was the caricatures. John Travolta, under whoever, I don't know who was directing the movie, basically was doing a caricature of how white people look at black people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What was your feeling about Harry Belafonte and the other fellow when they're, you can't work for us? Was that a caricaturization as well?
Oh yes, it is. It's a role, and I love the movie because the movie is about a role reversal, right? It's like, okay, now we're talking about black man privilege, you're right,
yeah.
And we're talking about white man oppression, right? And I think you're a smart guy. Thank you for bringing that up. You said the Watermelon Man was too easy. However, that is a classic. One day I hope we get a chance to dissect that. We'll keep going forward on this one. But let's do it like this, right? So here's my story, right? It's like not a lot of black guys work on Wall Street, whatsoever. And it was my lot that, in my career as a broker on the street, that I walk into a boardroom, right? One or two brothers, might be there. I want to thank God for Angel Cruz, my Puerto Rican boss, because he actually gave me a shot when Dean Witter said, "You're not our kind of guy." Right. And so he gave me a shot, ended up, raising a family and doing, fairly well. Right. Learned some great things. It was a great experience. But what was clear to me was that I had to make an adaptation in order to survive in that world. Now, it didn't mean I had to lose my sense of identity, right? But in order for me to cooperate, I had to negotiate. And so what that meant was that I couldn't look and go like, "You white devil," right? It's like, there's too many white guys in this room. They all can't be devils. Now, some of them were. They needed Jesus. Some of them still need him now. But I mean, just think about when I worked with you at AEI. Can we say that?
Sure.
Oh, at AEI, right? And what if I had been like that? I don't think I would have had any success, in that firm. So I think that two things have to happen. One thing is that, we have to, Black folks have to understand, yeah, we need Black people, but we need white folks too. We need brown people. We need Asian people. We all need each other. And I think that we have to help America find a point to turn this pot off a high and put this pot on simmer, because if we give each other a chance, okay, we will learn each other. We'll learn how to appreciate each other. And ultimately, we'll form friendships and partnerships like the way you and I have, where we actually love, one another. What do you think about that?
Well, I love you. I know that, and I know that, and it's wonderful. couple things come to mind. And for anybody watching this, Curtis and I probably say I love you more than I say I love you to anybody. And I mean it.
We just said it out.
Yeah. I was at this small conference a couple years ago, and this is not going to black white. This is male female, and I was watching the men at this conference. This was a financial conference talking about impact investing, all this really great stuff, and really is great stuff. Where it started to talk about stakeholders rather than shareholders alone. But one of the things I noticed, Curtis, and I've talked about this, is that of the attendees, probably 75% men and 25 to 30% women. The men were all pitching each other deals, and the women were forming relationships. So if you're a restaurant and you have your entire business is on how great you make the food, if you have one bad meal there, people aren't going to come back. If you're a restaurant that we go there because we're with family, it feels great when you get there. The cook comes out and he spends time with you. The waitresses and waiters are all great. They love you. You get a bad meal, everybody has a bad meal.
Right.
Well, if I base my relationship with you on a deal, that's a pretty tenuous platform to base a relationship on. If I get to know you as a person, I'm going to give you, and hopefully you give me the benefit of the doubt when I screw something up.
Yeah.
We can walk through it and talk through it. If I don't know you, then I'm going to judge you on the thing that can go yes or no, binary.
Right. Yeah, and in this country, when you do binary, that's why I love the conversation about trinary, right? Because it adds another dimension to that. It moves you out of that isolated domain and gives you another option to move into, forward or backwards. Either one, either way. It's clear that someone needs to come out and, then we need to join these conversations, right? We need to understand why so much resistance was put up against the Black Lives Matters protesters, right? And then we need to understand why there was a lack of resistance, with these protesters on Wednesday, right? I think about that kid who was walking down the street with his AK in his hand and the National Guard was going the other way. And, the kid, guilt was all over him. Like, I just shot and killed somebody. Like, no, they're going to arrest me? And it just went through him. I wonder how many generations we are from that change, in terms of mentality. I love Baldwin. I quote him often, but, and I say it like this, and I guess I can't say the N word on this because I might get censored, but he said that it was when I was in France that I understood that I was not a Negro, but I was an American. And if they didn't like me in France, it wasn't because of the color of my skin. It was because of my affiliation to my country. So I think that, we got a lot of work to do. I kind of like Biden's approach, a little bit. I think he's being, granddad and passive a little bit, right? And I think it's kind of smart. He's saying that, this impeachment process that's not my job. Although I kind of think it is. It's the job of the Senate and the Congress, so he's going to let them go ahead and do whatever they need to do. But it's real clear that he wants to bring, some centeredness, to this relationship that we have with one another in America. And, again, the words of Rodney King just keep reverberating every decade, don't they? Mm-hmm. Can we all get along? How deep do we need to go in our thought process on this?
Well, you and I I wrote that little piece this past week about 2001's 20 years ago, and it was talking about the conversation that you, Phil Dillard, and I had a couple of weeks ago about military, et cetera. And I, the end, I had a call to action for it. And the fourth call to action was when you see somebody in the military, see somebody in uniform on the street, go up, say hello to them, get a cup of coffee, listen to them, hear their story. Maybe they'll even become friends. When you're at church, when you're at a conference, when you're on the whatever, you see somebody maintain, especially now, put your mask on and do all that stuff. You and I shared that story about the wine bottles.
Right. In the pool, right.
Yeah. Do you mind if I say it?
Go ahead. No, it's a good one.
So this was an opportunity I had to give a sermon and use the Oakland Hills fire, where people they got a knock on the door. They had so many minutes to clean out the important stuff out of their house. And what would they take? Good sermon to give, good sermon to hear. Can never be told often enough. What is important in your life? Are you living with what's important in your life? Well, the Spirit came through me and giving me a different ending to that sermon. And what I talked about was this one family that had a great wine cellar. And they got the knock on the door. They had to get their stuff out of the house. They didn't have enough vehicles to get all their wine bottles into cars and gone, but they had a swimming pool in the backyard. That was pretty cool. And they formed a bucket brigade. And the dad's standing in waist deep water, and the kids are handing him the bottles. They've got a bucket brigade, one to one, and he's putting them on the bottom of the pool and saves all the bottles of wine. The temperature of the water is great, no problem at all. Well, as fate would have it, the house was not touched by fire. It was wonderful. Nothing was destroyed. But when the family was allowed back in about 2 weeks later, floating on the top of the pool were all the wine labels. So they could no longer look at the label on the bottle to decide, is this a really good bottle of wine or is this a really bad bottle of wine? They had to open up the bottle. So they couldn't use the label to tell them if something was good or bad. They had to taste the wine. So when you see somebody, don't go, oh my God, that guy's fat, or that guy hasn't bathed, or that woman is short, or that man is whatever. He's got tattoos, he's got piercings. Spend the time, open up the bottle, get to know what's inside.
Yeah.
There was a book years ago called The Rule of the Bone. And in it, this guy's got body piercings and tattoos. And somebody asked him, well, why do you have all those? And he said, because I don't want people to look at me. He was afraid what would happen when they got beyond the piercings, that there was nothing there.
Yeah.
So challenge yourself, get beyond the label.
Right. You talked about going to conventions and what have you. And what's interesting is that like last year this time, I headed to San Antonio, Texas to a convention. And I started doing things differently. You have an impact people. So I started doing things differently. And I started doing things like going to people that I knew I did not know. Deliberately, and I saw somebody that I knew. I was like, "Hey, man, how's it going? Boom, boom, oh, cool." But I wanted to make a point, that since I'm here in San Antonio, Texas, and I know you from Oakland, but I don't know this guy from Baltimore, right? And just expanded my network by 5, 10, 20-fold. And I think that, when you talk about the labels, and that's a major problem that we just have, here in this country. I don't live anywhere else, but I live here, with the labeling piece. And we're going to have to get around that, man. We're going to have to start taking lessons from our kids and our grandkids, about, because, kids, they don't look at labels. They don't look at a little, like my granddaughter, her best friend is a little Hispanic girl. And I can guarantee you that that's the last thing that they talk about. And if children can find, common ground, maybe that's why Jesus said, suffer the little children, right? Don't touch them, don't bother them, because there's something pure about their approach to relationships, right? And if a 7-year-old can find common ground, definitely a 70-year-old can find common ground. But let me ask you this, Jeff, and we got a few more minutes left, right? Why were these people so mad? This white guy was like, they're taking our country from us. We're not free. We don't have any freedom. And I'm sitting there going like, maybe he never heard that song called Strange Fruit. But these people were pissed, as if a bunch of Black folks was going into suburban America, yanking their kids and stringing them up in trees. So is there some disillusionment going on here? I mean, what can we do to help these people turn the situation in differently?
It's one by one. It's not. I got to tell you a real quick story, and this has to do with your church. We did this lunch program, so I'm going to tell you 2 stories. You tell me which one's more important.
Okay.
We did this lunch program for the last 38, 39 weeks out of our little church. And we distributed lunches to Sausalito and then up to San Rafael. Pardon me, just saying I got a cough. And the first week we did 82 lunches, second week 82 lunches, third week 180 lunches, whatever. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. Got to the end, and it's going to keep going in another way. But at the end, we delivered 7,790 lunches.
Yeah.
7,700. That's incredible. Story number 1. Story number 2. It's the last week before Christmas. We pick up about 306. We pick up 306 lunches, 30 down to Sausalito. Got 276 left. You were so gracious as to say, bring them over here. We did. And you and I and the wonderful group at the church handed out the lunches to every family that came up to get their Christmas presents. In some cases, their only Christmas present.
Right.
That was really cool. You and I are getting ready to pull this big trash bin in, and there's a fellow that hangs out there at the church, and he just grabbed a bag of rotting oranges.
Right.
And Pastor Robinson goes up and says, I can't remember the guy's first name. He goes, you can't eat that. You're going to get sick if you eat that. You know you're going to get sick. And he said, Pastor, I'm hungry. And you got him a lunch.
Right.
7,790 doesn't matter. It's that one lunch.
Right.
So let's start with one. Find one person. Might be a Republican. Might be a Democrat. Might be whatever. But find somebody. Be safe. Don't take your mask off, especially at this time when Chris Caldwell told us today that the hospitals are overwhelmed. So be smart about that.
Mm-hmm.
But get to know somebody. It was funny growing up where you'd say, I don't, all the blanks are like this, except for the ones I know. All the so-and-sos, except for the ones I know. Well, guess what? They're all good. If you're willing to,
Right.
get to know them. There's some people that, you probably don't want to be left alone with in a room. And I appreciate that. And the risk still to this day for a woman to expose herself to that danger is not the smartest thing to do. So make sure you do it right. And to a man, don't put yourself where you are taking advantage of somebody else.
Right.
Do it in a public place. Maybe it's a Starbucks if they ever open again, or it's a whatever. Just get to know somebody.
Right. Get to know somebody
One at
else.
a time.
Expose, extend.
Yes.
I want to say this one little quote from A Theology of Liberation, Gustavo Gutierrez. It's a great book. You got to grab this one, man, when you get a chance. Because I think this is one of the problems that we have. We don't understand the relationship between racism and classism. But in chapter 9 in his book, he talks about liberation and salvation. And he opens up, he says, what is the relationship between salvation and the process of human liberation throughout history? Or more precisely, what is the meaning of the struggle against an unjust society and the creation of a new humanity in the light of the word? Then I'll read this from the other paragraph. He says, one of the great deficiencies of contemporary theology is the absence of a profound and lucid reflection on the theme of salvation, right? And so I think that the church, and I want to say this, the church was as complicit, in this particular situation as the president was, okay? Because if there's any august body of thinkers that should have a grip on humanity, it ought to be the church, which means we still deal with this thing, what King talks about, the most segregated hour in America is at 11 o'clock, on Sunday mornings. And so we got to get past that, because once we get past and through, we really do have to get past that, because once we get past and through that, then we can understand, first of all, that we all have been oppressed by something. And it is the process of salvation, that can liberate us. And I know I may have some theologians that may chime in and say, well, what is salvation? No, salvation, to me, is being clear and safe. That's what salvation is. Salvation is the process of making one safe and giving one comfort when they're in need of it. So great discussion. It's been a horrible week, and you got any closing comments for us, bud?
Well, one, I love you.
I love you too, man.
Man, I just want to say, what really always gets me, and it's wrong that it does, but it does. I don't go to church because I'm a perfect person. I go to church because I'm not.
Yeah.
And to see people that seem to put on the airs of superiority because they are a Christian, because they go to church, because of whatever their faith tradition leads them to. We go because we know we can do better, and we use the discipline, the lessons that our faith tradition has given us, not to be superior, but because we are flawed human beings. This is a rule book, a guidebook that we can use to make us better, not to be better than somebody else. And I think if we, and you've told me this so much better, it's not Black Lives Matter does not mean that other lives don't matter. You put the comma "2" in there. Black Lives Matter 2.
Right.
And for so many people, they didn't. This was not it was a different class. It was a different group. Jewish Lives Matter 2 in Germany.
Yeah.
In the
as
United
well as
States,
in Russia.
And in Russia, the pogroms, all that stuff there. I think in the United States, we still have the issue, and we need to, I think if we can do one thing with it, in my opinion, no big study on this, I think if we sort of reclaim the Black Lives Matter with a comma 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people here and think that the movement is about making Black lives superior to. rather than just as much as your life matters.
Right. Right. I think that's well said. I think that's well said.
Thank you.
So listen, I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody. A couple of people, you know, they showed up. They tuned in on the YouTube channel.
Cool.
And I got a lot of stuff to edit, you know, from like last year. And we're gonna do something, man. We're gonna do something. But I want to see definitely more of these kind of formats.
Yeah.
You know, we need to see more of these multiracial formats at a local level. Boom. I mean, yeah, we see them nationally, CNN and all that, but we need to see it like more local participation, man. So I'm just looking forward to this year. Thank you so much, my brother. I got mad love for you. We got some big projects to do this year, and buckle up.
Buckle up.
Already, man. I lost about 20 pounds last year. I'm like, woo-hoo, ready to go.
Good.
All right, my man.
All right. Talk soon.
Talk to you, man. Love you, man. I talk to you.
Love you.
All right, bye.